Hello. The other day I had done a little nugget regarding depression. So this would be depression part two. And I am blending mostly spiritual today, but it is a blend of spiritual and mental health. And I wanted to just do part two because I felt like it was necessary to get even more clarification. So, the first part I want to just quickly discuss is what depression is. And we talked about it a little bit last time in regarding to some things that show up, but it does show up in four different areas: how you act, how your body reacts, how you think, and how you feel. As far as how you act, there might be a tendency to isolate socially. You may have decreased physical activity, not engaging in things that were once fun, enjoyable, or interesting. You may become argumentative, or you may become avoidant or overly protective. As far as how your body reacts, you may have difficulty falling or staying asleep, poor or excessive appetite, or fatigue and exhaustion. How you think, there is hopelessness, persistent negative thoughts about yourself, the world, or your future, low self esteem, pessimism, which is negative thinking, suicidal thoughts or ideations, or just worried thoughts and ruminating thoughts. How you feel is sad, guilty, shame, low motivation, numb or that nothing matters, anxious, worried, irritable, and lack of ability to enjoy things. So, those are some of the things, and it's not a comprehensive list again, because everyone is different and you don't have to have all of these. But if you are experiencing many of these in these four areas, that is where depression is setting in. Usually, with depression, there's this spiral. It starts off with events in your life, trauma, conflicts, just life history, life experiences. And then from there, it begins to go into adult relationships and conflicts in relationship and relationship problems. From there, it spirals and it goes into negative thoughts. The negative thoughts become negative emotions. The negative emotions, begin to make you stay away from people and isolate and not connecting as much. And from there, other people begin to stay away. And when they stay away is because their thought is, if you're staying away, you don't want to be bothered, so they stay away from you, even though you're thinking that no one wants to be with me. And that spiral brings you all the way down to rock bottom, where the suicidal ideations, and suicidal thoughts come in. So I wanted to walk you that quickly just to let you know what it is. But I also wanted to bring you to what the Bible talks about in regards to depression. And so, again, I wanted to, as far as depression, it can be caused by many different variables, and that includes either personal sin and unbelief. It could be physical and emotional exhaustion. It could be fear. It could be come from influence of spiritual forces, and or it could be a reaction to difficult circumstances like tragedy, grief, or abuse. But it could, again, that's not comprehensive. It can come from many different areas, including chemical imbalance. So there are many things that happen, but these are kind of the common denominators. But the Bible also acknowledges the reality of depression, and that's what I want to touch upon today. But it also offers a path to healing through faith, prayer, trust, hope, and community. So I just want you to know that even though depression did exist in the Bible and depression does exist today, and many people have gone through depression, and I'm going to go over quickly five people today, it's not limited to those five people. What I want you to realize is, while we may have these emotions or these feelings or these diagnoses, it doesn't mean we stay there. It means we recognize and acknowledge what we're going through and then do something about it. I'm going to go through five different people in the Bible that experienced some level of despair, of depression, of isolation, of sadness. And the first one I want to talk about is David. David expressed and I'm going to try to go quickly. David expressed his despair, his fear, guilt, and sorrow in his Psalms. He wrote Psalms and he began to talk about it through those Psalms. And the reason for that was because he felt alone, he felt oppressed by his enemies, and he was burdened by his sins. And one of the verses that I wanted to read in Psalm 25, verse 16 to 18, And I'm going to summarize a lot of the verses that I'm giving today. I'm going to give you like a synopsis, a quick summary, but you can go back and read the verses yourself. So the first one I'm going to read is Psalm 25, verse 16 to 18, where David says to God, "Turn to me and have mercy, for I am alone and in great distress." So we see that he was distressed. He was really down and just having despair, sorrowful, feeling guilt, feeling fear, just really down and low and depressed. But he went to God. What we see here in Psalm 25 is he didn't stay there. He told God, he was authentic, he was vulnerable, he was honest, and he came to God and said, "This is where I'm at. This is what I feel." And but he went to God because he trusted that God was going to do something about it, and he did, because God always comes to the rescue. So it's knowing not to stay there, but knowing you're there and who to go to, which is your God. The lesson we learn with David is that it demonstrates that it is okay to be honest and vulnerable with God about our loneliness, about our pains, about our burdens, and just come to him, because if anyone understands and knows you is God, and he is there for you, and he will always be there for you. So that is David's experience. The next one I want to talk about is Job. And Job, as most people know, is a man who lost everything. He lost his children, he lost his cattle, his herd, he lost his money, he lost everything, and he was diseased. He was pretty much at the end of his rope. He had nothing, but he did have his faith in God. He did still trust God. Even though he questioned God, he did still trust him, and he was still crying out to him, and he was still praying, even with the midst of everything he was going to. But Job did question God. He cried out to God. Despite his pain and confusion, he still cried out to God because he couldn't understand his suffering. And, you know, that little moment there reminds me, my experience when I lost my mom over 25 years ago. And I had that moment. I had so much faith that I told the doctors, they kept questioning, and I'm like, no, she's going to get up. God is going to heal her. God is going to get her up. I'm not worried. And there was this abundance of faith where it wasn't a question. And she eventually went into a coma. She eventually died. It really hit me hard. I mourned her death even before she died. Um, I kind of just had a breakdown at home one day just before she died. Just the burden of everything and just questioning God and asking Him and believing in Him. But then when she died, while I still believed in God and still trusted God and still prayed to God, it was a very deep, deep sorrow and grief that I went through. And I questioned God so much at that time. I still went to church. I cried in church. I was still present. I still prayed. I still read the word. I was still connected to God, but it was with this level of deep despair and sorrow and grief. And I remember praying to God and letting Him know, or asking Him, I don't understand. I believed in you. I trusted in you. I thought you were going to get her up and that you were going to heal her and that she was not going to die. And I don't get what happened. I don't get it. I had so much faith, and I'm just really not understanding what's going on. And God spoke to me, to my heart, and He kind of put me in my place, and He reminded me of Job, and He took me to Job, and He began to speak to me and tell me, who do you think you are? I'm the one that created the world. I give life and I give death, and what you don't understand today, you will understand tomorrow. And for me, obviously, those weren't just the only words He spoke, but when He spoke to me, it was like into my spirit, into my bones, into me, and it was almost a wake up call. It's almost like I immediately snapped out of whatever I was in, out of that grief, out of that sorrow. Doesn't mean I don't grieve, I don't cry, but it snapped me out of that moment. And it's like I woke up spiritually, and it's like, wow, like, okay, I get it. And I don't get it today, but you know what? One day I will. And but God is still in control. And this was what was happening with Job. And Job, he didn't understand his suffering, like most of us sometimes don't understand our suffering. But Job 30, verse 20, Job cried out to God in his anguish and pain. And he said, I cry out to you, God, but you do not answer. I stand up, but you merely look at me. And in his despair and everything he went through and losing everything, and even his wife telling him to curse your God and die, and his friends kind of showing up, you know, trying to show support, but not really supporting. He was really alone and isolated in this journey that he had. But he stood his ground, even though he had questions. He trusted and kept his faith until God returned double to him. And the lesson that we learn with Job is demonstrating that pain is not a lack of faith, but it shows that we can be honest and vulnerable with God, lamenting and deeply hurting, and yet maintaining a relationship with God, ultimately trusting in Him, because we know where our help comes from, and that is from God. The third person that I wanted to discuss was Hannah. Hannah was a person that was barren. She was also tormented by her husband's other wife, and because she couldn't have children and the other one could. And so Hannah sought the Lord, despite her anger, her despair, her fear, because of this, because she was barren, because she was tormented. She sought the Lord. She prayed in the altar. She just cried out to God. And in 1 Samuel 1:11, Hannah, in her distress, made a vow to the Lord, promising to give her son to the Lord for his entire life if God would grant her a son and not forget her. And eventually God did. God wiped her tears, gave her a son, and she did what she promised. The lesson here with Hannah is demonstrating that we should pray openly and honestly, in spite of how we're feeling, and persevere in seeking the Lord despite our pain and our disappointment or any circumstance we're going through. But praising our way through, praying our way through, keeping that faith, keeping that connection, because we don't want to walk away because our hope remains in Him, in God. The next one I want to talk about is Elijah. And Elijah feared the threats of death by Queen Jezebel. And he ran away to the wilderness, hid in a cave. And, he got to the point where he felt so much intense stress and hopelessness and isolation, and he was afraid. And he was just really severely depressed at the time. And he was exhausted. And he just prayed to God and kind of just wished death. Like he just prayed for his death. Like he just didn't want to go on. And but at that time, God allowed him to rest physically, and God provided him food, and He provided him water, and He allowed him to rest. So instead of taking his life, God allowed him to say, "Okay, I get you. I know what you're going through, but you know what? Let me give you rest. Stay here, rest. I'll give you what you need, water and food, and then stay here until a moment. Not forever, but stay here in the moment. Allow yourself to rest, restore, replenish, reset, and then come back out." So after God provided him these things, He gave him a new assignment, and Elijah received physical and spiritual comfort from God. And in First of Kings 19, verse 4 to 14, that was where Elijah spoke about his depression, his isolation, and his despair. You can read from verse 4 to 14 in First of Kings chapter 19. But the lesson here is demonstrating that God provides. He is Jehovah Jireh. He is your Jehovah Jireh. And sometimes as simple as knowing that we need rest and food to be refreshed and restored, sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes we keep going, 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 and we forget that sometimes it's okay not to be okay. Sometimes it's okay to be exhausted and rest. Sometimes it's okay to know that our burden is too heavy right now and we need time to rest and allow ourselves to kind of have a moment, but then get out of that moment. You don't want to stay in that moment because that's when it's dangerous. So with Elijah, the lesson is demonstrating that God provides, Jehovah Jireh, sometimes as simple as knowing that we need rest and food to be refreshed and restored, pushing us forward and out of the stuck position when we become confused, alone, and lost. Because sometimes when we're in that state, we get stuck. We get stuck in our thoughts. We get stuck in our feelings. We get stuck in that middle of the brain moment of not understanding and not knowing where to go and not being able to put one foot in front of the other. But in that stuck position, God allows us to rest, but then He also provides for us to get unstuck and be able to move beyond that moment, to use logic, to use reason, to use rationale, and to be able to do the opposite of what we feel, to get motivated and be able to be restored by Him and find that hope and healing in Him. And then the next person I wanted to talk about And before I even go there, with back to Elijah, part of the healing process is to re-engage and reconnect. The opposite of depression is connection. When we begin to feel depressed, we begin to isolate. We begin to not connect with people. That is the first sign you see when someone is staying away, staying home, not connecting, not going anywhere, saying no to everything. Check up on your neighbors, on your friends, on your family, because this is one of the signs. So the opposite of depression is connection. So making sure that you reconnect, to re-engage, recommit, redo to life, to people, and to your responsibilities. The next one I want to talk about is Jeremiah. Jeremiah experienced deep despair and depression after the destruction of the temple and from the pressure of his calling as a prophet. The people were just ridiculing him, persecuting him, judging him. And he experienced loneliness, isolation, sadness, rejection, and being misunderstood. And he talks about this in Lamentations chapter 3, where Jeremiah describes his suffering and bitterness and hopelessness. He got to the point of hopelessness, which is depression. And the lesson here that we learn from Jeremiah and his experience is that it demonstrates that being in despair and depression is not a sign of weak faith, but a human reality where we learn to trust God despite our distress, always maintaining faith in God's unfailing love, and we can trust that his faithfulness will provide hope, because our hope is in the Lord, and we know where our help comes from, and it comes from God. So even whenever you're down and out, knowing that we can just be honest and vulnerable and cry and just spill our guts and just go to God and just be real. And even though he knows, he wants to hear it from us. It's like, I can help you, but I need you to come to me and ask for help. And that's what we have to know. It's not just staying there thinking, well, God doesn't come to help me. Did you ask him for help? Did you tell him where you're at? Did you tell him how you feel? Did you tell him what you need? He wants you to come to him. He doesn't want to force it upon you. Go to him and be honest and vulnerable and just spill out. Just say it all, cry it out, and let him refresh you. Let him restore you, and he will. When you go to God, the environment always changes. Always. I have that as testimony my whole life, that when I've gone to God in prayer through all the circumstances in my life, and there's been many from birth to now, he's always changed the atmosphere. He's always changed the environment. He always made a shift in mindset, a shift in your spirit, a shift in your flesh, a shift in your home, in your family, in your friends, in your work. He can do it, but he wants you to go to him. And so I spoke about these 5 people, David, Job, Hannah, Elijah, and Jeremiah. There are more, I'm sure, but these are the 5 that I studied. And this is what we need to do as far as spiritually. I'm going to give you both spiritually and secular. As far as spiritual, the first thing we need to do is turn to God in prayer and trust. Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make straight your path. In Romans 8:28, and we know that all things, not some, all things, God works for good, but in his way, in his will, in his time, of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And if you love him, you obey him. You can't say, I trusted in God and he didn't do, when you're being disobedient. So if you love the Lord, that means you are obedient to his word, and therefore you can carry this verse with you and believe in it. The second one, seek comfort in his promises of presence and peace. In Isaiah 40, verse 31, those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. Romans 15, verse 13, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him. The third, find hope in God whom will renew your strength. Isaiah 40:31, but they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Romans 15:13, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him. The next one, find hope. This is the third one. Find hope in God who will renew your strength. And I feel like I'm hoping I'm not repeating. So the first one was turn to God in prayer and trust, Proverbs 3:5-6, Romans 8:28. The second one was seek comfort in his promises of presence and peace, and that's in Isaiah 40:31 and Romans 15:13. And the third one, find hope in God whom will renew your strength, and that was in Isaiah 40 verse 31. And I guess that's where I'm at. Excuse me. So the third one is find hope in God whom will renew your strength. Isaiah 40 verse 31. But they that wait in the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. And in 2 Corinthians 4:16, so we do not lose heart. Though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. The fourth one, importance of community. A lot of people don't believe they need this, but they do. People need people. It's just a fact. It's a human fact, and it's a spiritual fact. And we find it in Ecclesiastes 4, verse 9 and 10. Two are better than one, as they can help each other up. Again, I'm paraphrasing and summarizing. In Romans 12, 4 and 5, we are one body in Christ and need one another to be whole. And Hebrews 10, 24 and 25, encourage each other and don't give up in meeting together for spiritual growth. It is needed. The next one, finding rest in Christ. That's number 5. Finding rest in Christ. Psalm 37:7, rest in the Lord. Matthew 11, verse 28-30, talks about finding rest in Jesus. John 14, verse 27, Jesus promises his peace, and his peace that surpasses all understanding. And the last one here is taking action to return to your routines, tasks, and or responsibilities. Now that you've taken time to rest, even as God did with Elijah and sent him to a new assignment, you got to get up and you got to go back to your responsibilities, your routines, your life. You can't just stay there forever. You got to get up and you got to take action. And the key word is action. Zechariah 9 verse 12, return to your stronghold, O prisoners of hope. Today I declare that I will restore to you double. Galatians 6:5, for each will have to bear his own load. Colossians 3 verse 23 and 24, work heartily as if for the Lord and not for people. Luke 21 verse 34-36, be careful or your hearts will be weighted down by the anxieties of life. Be always on watch. That means action. Be always on watch. That takes action. And James 2 verse 14-17, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. And I just want to remind you, as far as secularly, things that you also do in this world. One is exercise, keeping your body moving in action. That's going to lower the depressive state of your mind. So if you're feeling like that, is doing the opposite of what you feel. If you're depressed, you want to stay sleeping, you want to stay down, you want to stay doing nothing. You want to do the opposite. You want to be able to do exercise, to move your body, and that is going to restore your mindset and restore the, wake up those happiness chemicals in the brain and allow you to be happy and joyful. And the second one is to socialize, connecting with people. Again, whether you are connecting with your church community, with family, with friends, or a meetup group, it doesn't matter what it is, but stay connected to someone, stay socializing, don't isolate. That's the worst thing you can do. The third one is hobbies, activities, or interests. Whatever interests or activities you have, if you have none, volunteer. You can do anything from sports, gardening, drawing, playing music, cooking, playing with your pets, cleaning the house, whatever it is, but being able to move and do some hobbies and activities that keep you busy, because an idle mind is the battlefield for the enemy. So you don't want to have an idle mind. You want to keep yourself busy, keep yourself moving, keep yourself in the word, keep yourself praying and connected to God, listening to worship music all day. Really just stay connected. And the last one is your personal care, keeping up with your sleep hygiene, having quality sleep, keeping up with your eating habits, making sure you're eating nutritious and that you're eating your meals every day. And just being able to, your environment, whatever it means for you, whether it's to clean up your environment, whether it is to get dressed up, whether it's to take, nice hot showers that relaxes the body, whatever it is that it means for you. But being able to take care of your personal care is important because most of the time when you fall in depression, what is affected is your personal care. You begin to not want to take a shower, not want to change clothes, just not want to do anything. So, this is a little bit of combination of just mental health in general and what to do, and spiritually what to do, and combining them both to help you through this time, in your life. And we go through depressive moments, it just means we don't want to stay there. So I pray blessings upon you. I hope that this was helpful. And if you have any questions, you can ask me. But I just want you to, take heart of this and really reflect in your life and those around you and be able not to stay in the rut that you're in, but knowing that there's hope in the Lord and we can get out of whatever situation we are in. So God bless you. Have a good night.